But we're going to move rather quickly so we can get to the purpose of this meeting. But at this time, I would like to ask all members to stand up for a word of prayer. Senator Boswell, would you say prayer for us, please?
I will. Great God of highest heaven, grant unto us the wisdom to make decisions that affect our state. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. And now if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask the clerk to call the roll this time.
Senator Boswell.
Aye. Here.
Senator Carpenter. Senator Elkins.
Present.
Senator Girdler. Senator Herron. Senator Maiden. Senator Mills. Senator Neal. Senator Webb. Senator West. Senator Wheeler. Vice Chair Williams.
Here.
And Chair Smith.
Present. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
I need a motion on approval of our minutes for a past meeting. We have a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor of the sign of aye. Opposed likewise, the motion carries. Now, folks, usually I let members introduce people and stuff like that. We're not going to do that today. We can do it at the end, so I do apologize in advance. At this time, we're going to ask Senator Wheeler to come down and present his bill, and any guests he has with him are welcome to come to the table. And because of the time, we're going to try to do our best to let everybody speak, but if it's a group, you may have one person speak for you, and I apologize, because we do want to hear everybody. Senator Mills, we'll recognize you.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a message. I'm double checking this, but they said that the committee meetings were going to be pushed back 30 minutes. So I think that means state and local, which several of us are in, won't start until 11:30. So it appears we may still have an hour for this committee meeting.
Give us a minute. How many of my members will we lose in the next 30 minutes?
I mean, if it stayed on schedule, state and local's at 11.
Okay. And so you could go, I imagine, and check in and maybe have them let you know if you have to go back and. So we're going to be very flexible with members that have to run to other committees. So if you see a member get up and go out, please understand they're going to go vote, and we'd like to ask them to come back. We have two very important bills, and we want to do the due diligence for it. So at this time, oh, hold on. All right, Senator Wheeler, do you have anybody that's going to come to the table with you? No. All right, very good. We'll turn it over to you, and I assume you have to identify yourself for our records. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Philip Wheeler, 31st Senate District. Senate Bill 213 represents a consumer-driven effort to rein in some power bills that are frankly right out of control, especially in the eastern end of our state. Electric utilities in Kentucky, for those on this committee who may not know, essentially have monopolies over geographic territories in the state with a right to serve and charge electric rates to each consumer within that area. Out of concern for the rates the monopoly may charge, or that with no competition they would provide bad service, the rates of the monopoly are regulated by the Kentucky Public Service Commission. Electric utilities rates include costs that largely fall into one of three categories: investment-related costs, operations and maintenance, expenses, and taxes. Investor-owned utilities make a profit based on how much capital they've invested in the utility, while operation and maintenance costs are a mere pass-through that utilities put onto their customers and are expensed as they occurred. Utility investments stay on the utility's books for the life of the asset, which would be like power plants and things like that. These investments create depreciation expenses that is included in the rates and come along with financing costs. For investor-owned utilities, these financing costs include utility shareholders' equity in the utility, the return on that equity, which is recovered through rates, and the return on that is the investment represents a shareholder's profit. Given the long-lived nature and significant cost of utility investments, one poor decision by a utility with respect to wires, poles, or power plants can cost customers for decades. Given that utilities are rate-related and their rates include their investments, captive customers rather than shareholders often bear the risks of a utility's bad decision-making. Further, while the PSC sets rates based on expected costs, they don't run utilities or make spending decisions for utilities in rate cases. For instance, while a utility may seek and the PSC may give the authority to spend money for something like cutting trees near power lines, they don't control who the utility picks or what type of decisions are made. So in the many instances where utilities choose not to carry out these things in the most cost-efficient manner, it is the ratepayers that bear those costs. Senate Bill 213 is an effort to try to encourage utilities to do better planning. In addition, it is a way to provide generation on a local basis in service areas that perhaps are suffering from high rates right now and are having trouble attracting industry into the area, like where I live in eastern Kentucky. The PSC is the public's exclusive protection from the monopoly utilities providing poor service or operating high costs. While utility regulation has become significantly more complicated and involved, the PSC experienced a significant reduction in the number and experience of their staff. And while the PSC has been able to add a remarkable number of staff in the past few years due to the focus and dedication of the General Assembly in multiple budgets, their staff levels and experience are still far below where they were 2 decades ago. This bill, Senate Bill 213, is intended to be an initial step in steering the ship back in a reasonable direction and attempting to align the interests of customers and ratepayers in the energy systems that they use in this state. If utilities are uninterested or unable to reasonably meet the needs of the public that depend on them for life-sustaining services or to be the primary economic driver in their communities, then this bill provides the PSC with a preliminary toolbox to militate utility behavior or impacts or otherwise provide customers with an alternative means of service. Section 1 of the bill is it concerns integrated resource plans and consumer-friendly utility planning. This section sets forth the General Assembly's expectation that utilities should be conducting system and resource planning on a least cost, reliable manner that ensures that the customer has the lowest rates. While the PSC has regulations regarding integrated resource plans, those regulations are weak and do not set clear expectations for utilities regarding the cost of the system and the reliability of the needs they need to meet and address. This section accomplishes this in a number of ways. Subsection 1, it makes sure that utilities have sufficient resources to meet customers' needs and to ensure that the utility customers are served effectively and efficiently. Utilities should procure needed resources competitively, and in so doing, they should stabilize and prioritize reliability, safety, security, and resilience. In instances where the utilities don't have enough capacity today, utilities should get out of the way so that new large customers can be economically served by other people. Subsection 2 sets forth a statutory requirement for investor-owned utilities to conduct and file with the PSC triennial integrated resource plans. These integrated resource plans should be conducted on a least cost, least regrets manner and be transparent, robust, risk-based, and cost-conscious. Subsection 3 makes sure utilities have enough capacity to serve customers, either through owning the resources of generation, such as power plants, or contracting for power from other sources. Subsection 4 requires the PSC to create regulations to adhere to the statutory requirements in the bill. The integrated resource regulations apply to investor-owned utilities. Distribution cooperatives satisfy the sufficiency capacity expectations from subsection 3 by maintaining all requirement contracts with their generation and transmission cooperative. Subsection 5 sets forth the General Assembly's expectations that Integrated Resource Plan should set forth a plan for the utilities to meet their needs at the lowest and most reasonable cost to the ratepayers in the service area. Subsection 6 sets forth the General Assembly's expectation that utilities if utilities cannot meet the requirements of subsection 3 through spot or near spot purchases of capacity, but rather should have owned or contracted generation. In many instances, utilities will go to the spot market through PJM to meet their peak needs. This is a very expensive and inefficient means which causes additional cost to the ratepayers. Section 2 of this bill states that the monopoly service territories are a privilege in Kentucky and not a right. The purpose of the bill, in 1972, when the service territories were established and these monopolies were granted, they were granted at the expectation that the customers within those monopoly service territories would be served at a least cost basis. Unfortunately, that has not been the case in some service areas. This section affirms the constitutional requirement that defined the service territories granted to utilities via the Kentucky Certified Territory Act in 1972, and it states that they are not irrevocable franchises, but are instead grants of privilege that the Commonwealth can revoke when they are not providing adequate service within the area. Subsection 1 of Section 2 states that exclusive monopoly service territories are the property right of the Commonwealth. It also states that during the sale of an electric utility, the PSC shall consider the premium paid over the utility's book value to represent the value of the exclusive monopoly service territory provided by the Commonwealth. If a premium over book value is paid as part of a purchase price, the PSC may determine what the premium is and what to do with that premium, including, hopefully, remitting that back down to the customers. We saw this a couple of years ago in the attempted sale of Kentucky Power to Liberty Utilities. Depending on the publication that you read, American Electric Power stood to make in between $300 million and $1 billion worth of profit off the sale of that utility. That profit was going to be saddled on the ratepayers of Eastern Kentucky, one of the poorest areas in the entire state, for generations. If a utility doesn't want to do business in Kentucky and chooses to leave, they deserve to leave with their capital. They do not deserve to leave a lasting legacy of indebtedness on ratepayers within a service area. So this allows that money to be put back down onto the ratepayers, the people that live there, if there is a profit paid for a utility. Section 3 is an innovative proposal to provide for new large loads in eastern Kentucky to get power from the market and not just a specific utility. They do that by providing that loads above 50 megawatts can make a one-time choice to receive power from an alternative source. This will allow for economic development by making the rates for a job producer lower than what it would ordinarily be in the service area. Now, the provider in that area would, in fact, be paid for their transmission lines and other type of infrastructure utilized by that specific power plant. However, that does provide a business that would seek to locate in the region with a cheaper alternative source of energy. Finally, subsection 4, the adequate service and integrated resource plan definition, it amends adequate service under KRS 278.010 to make clear that a utility's obligation is to provide adequate service, including having sufficient generating capacity to meet a customer's demand. Again, subsection 6 also amends KRS 278.018 to make it clear that the exclusive service territory is a privilege and not a right. If the PSC finds that there is an insufficiency of a utility and they are unable to remedy that insufficiency in a timely manner, it gives the PSC an option to alleviate that concern, including allowing other suppliers or utilities to serve those customers that cannot be adequately served by that utility. Section 7 of the bill states that if there are competing bids to buy a utility, if there is a sale, that the commission can consider the cost and service implications of the various ownership structures, including public ownership of a utility. And finally, under Section 8, contracts for generation, this section states that the PSC can consider in a utilities planning process, including their previous integrated resource plans, to say that a contract to provide energy is also a method of providing reliable service instead of just building a generating capacity for energy, if that is a more reasonable way and a cheaper way of providing electricity to the consumer. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 213 is basically a way to get back to reasonable rate structures, particularly in my home in eastern Kentucky. It does give the PSC some tools that will enable a more creative energy planning model that will hopefully attract industry into the area while providing reliable service to some of the poorest areas of the state.
And so I wanted to yield to the questions before we take a vote. Senator Herron, we'll yield to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill forward. I will say I have learned so much this session and so much more that I need to learn, and I'm trying my best to rein it all in. But I do know this, is that my LG&E bill over the last 4 months has been over $500. And so I get and understand the issues that people are having across the state, not only in your community, but also in mine. So I did just want to say that. But I do have a specific question,
Certainly.
and it's really just because I don't understand what it is. On page 3 in section 2, it says something about it shall be the property rights of the Commonwealth. Can you I just don't know what that means, if you can just break that down for me.
Sure, and that goes back to what we were talking about when the 1972 legislation that established service territories. Again, these utilities were granted monopolies within these service territories to service them. What this essentially does is stake out the Commonwealth's position that these are in fact privileges, that the actual right to service that territory belongs to the people in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It is merely a privilege that we have granted that utility in a monopoly fashion to service that area. But those rights are rights that belong to we, the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, is essentially what that section does.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll make a comment. When this bill was introduced, I'd shopped it out to I feel like some of the most credible think tanks in the U.S., and they said it was one of the most bold energy plans they'd seen. So I commend you what you're doing here. We have another question for you, Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so just to clarify, I think I understood what you said, but this is very interesting. So a utility sells their company for a $500 million profit. Essentially, the cost to purchase that, including the profit, that profit is carried on to the ratepayer as a part of the cost for the new purchaser.
That's exactly what happens. And, again, I can understand if you want to sell the company and you get your money back because you've been able to operate that company and make a profit along the way, but you should not be able to saddle people who are left behind with, a profit for Wall Street shareholders. And to Senator Herron's point, I get your pain. That is the number one complaint I get in this job is electric bills, And it really is a tearjerker when you see people that, live in a single wide trailer that get, an $800 or $900 electric bill when they're drawing a $1,500 Social Security check. You can't live like that. It's just not right. And, in Kentucky, we have seen our utilities since 2008 climb by over 63% on average. We used to have some of the lowest rates in the nation. They have had the fourth highest increase in rates in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So we've got to do something new because it's just not working for the people.
Senator Neal, we will yield to you.
I thank you for this, and thank you for an excellent explanation of the bill. That was very well
Thank you,
done.
Senator.
And you may have said this, I think I picked up, So allowing another company that's available to come online seems to be introducing a bit of competition, which has a dynamic that may have a tendency to drive down the cost a little bit.
That is the hope, Senator Neal, and it is narrowly tailored for places that do not currently have sufficient generation capacity because, you know, part of bringing that new capacity online, either through the construction of a new power plant or through purchase power agreements, that's, you know, an additional cost that can come down on the ratepayer. This would kind of allow some people to maybe kind of pay as they go if there's, say, like a data center that wants to come into eastern Kentucky but can't currently afford the rates as they currently are. This would allow them another option that would make that an economically viable investment. And again, they will be paying for their share of utilizing some of the transmission lines and other things in there. So those payments themselves would hopefully drive costs down for the people living in that service territory.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Carpenter. Senator Elkins.
Aye.
Senator Girdler. Senator Herron. Senator Maiden. Senator Mills. Senator Neal. Senator Webb. Senator West.
Explain my vote.
Please do.
Proudly vote aye, and I want to thank the senator from Pike for introducing this legislation. I think it's safe to say that you really don't want to be here today presenting this bill, but this is the result of some of the companies haven't been listening, and the legislature's been talking about this for a long time, and I feel that there's been little to no response in some situations. Not all companies, but some companies have not been listening, and I really appreciate the bill and what you've brought today. Thank you.
Senator Wheeler.
Mr. Chairman, explain my vote. To Senator West's point and to the points made by Senator Herron, I don't deny this is complicated stuff, and you know, it's almost like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, I didn't really realize how complex these issues are, and again, I can't promise this is going to be a silver bullet. I mean, this is difficult stuff because, yes, we can have certain tools and efforts on a state level, but we also have federal policy, and we need to try to come together as a country for an all-the-above strategy to make sure that consumers are first and foremost in mind when we do energy planning. So this bill is an attempt to get that done.
Senator Williams.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Please do.
And this is not an indication of how I'll vote on the floor, but right now I'm going to do what I do sometimes in committees, which is pass. This is a very good bill. I think there's a lot of great things in it. One of the things I'd like to see, I'd like to go a little bit further, just as a message, in that I would like to see every company is generating capacity to cover in Kentucky to cover its Kentucky users. And we have, not in your area, but we have one other area where there was a corporation that actually tried to take its only generation plant out of Kentucky and still have the privilege to serve Kentucky users. And quite frankly, I think Kentucky should be a power exporter and not a power importer. And that's what gives me pause here. And we need to, I know it'll go through the process. This is great. We need to get this message out. But I would like to be, once again, to when I was back in the old times when Kentucky was the second or third least cost power in the nation, and we were an exporter of power to the entire East Coast. And I think we can be that again. So I'm just going to pass, but not an indication of how I'll vote for this very good bill on the floor. Thank you.
Chair Smith.
And I'll explain my aye vote as well. Most of my conversations directed at our members. One of the most frustrating things we have as legislators is we're limited when it comes to the options that we have to try to wrestle these rates down the ground. So we had to back up and be very thoughtful about what we could actually do, because a lot of this is at the federal level, but this is a smart approach. It's one of the few things in our wheelhouse that allows you to have the input to start the process of getting control of these rates, bringing competition, doing exactly what was mentioned before, bringing the utilities back to buying power in the state of Kentucky. We should have an abundance. States that have excess power right now are the ones that people are going to. It lets you know you're open for business. And we're in a battle that I've never seen before of trying to get that message out in certain parts of our state. So I'm proud to vote aye. The vote by which Senate Bill 213 is taken is reported as favorable with the expression that the same shall pass. So congratulations.
Chairman,
to
thank you for your leadership on this issue as well.
Next bill on the agenda is Senate Bill 8. Mr. Chairman, if you'd introduce yourself for the record and please proceed with an explanation.
Mr. Chairman, it's Senator Brandon Smith, and apologize for the delay, but I felt like it'd be more helpful. It's on, so I have to speak louder. Senator Brandon Smith, apologies for the delay, but I think it's going to be worthwhile. So whenever you want me to start. Ladies and gentlemen, the Senate Bill 8, sorry about this. The purpose of Senate Bill 8 is to modernize Kentucky's Public Service Commission to better handle the increasingly complex utility regulation, the infrastructure and investment, and rate cases. We want the best people there. We want the best talent we can afford, the best technology, and having some freedom to where this agency can really begin to tackle some of the issues that are very, very important to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Now, there's changes, so I'd like to ask the committee to adopt Senate Committee Substitute Number 2. So what have we? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So now I'm speaking to the Senate Committee Substitute 2.
All opposed? Motion passes.
So here's what's in Senate Committee Substitute 2, and I'll go through some of the points, and then I'll go back and speak to the bill. So what we did in Senate Committee Substitute 2 was we adjusted the threshold for when a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, which is a CPCN, is required for electric transmission construction. The current law, as the Public Service Commission reviews, is required for projects over 1 mile. And you can see how that makes it very difficult for expansion. It's costly, it gets tied up, it can be delayed. We wanted to increase that. Now, the original language said for 20 miles, and really we thought we may have a better approach to that. And so we modified that to set it at 5. And we did this with that threshold of 5 with input from some former members of the Public Service Commission who had very good input that they still would have oversight for these, but now we can have a little bit more speed and building out the transmission that Kentucky needs to let the world know we're open for business. Just one mile at a time is antiquated. Moving the threshold to 5 miles and maintains the meaningful public service oversight for major projects. It reduces the unnecessary regulatory bottlenecks that the smaller projects have. It helps Kentucky modernize its transmission development process, and it allows the utilities to build infrastructure faster and more efficiently without being overtaxed, an allowance for going too far. Why this change matters. The revised threshold strikes a balance between oversight and infrastructure and efficiency. Kentucky's current standards requires the Public Service Commission approval for high voltage transmission lines for over 1 mile. Many states' transmission siting thresholds primarily around voltage levels rather than the short distance triggers. Senate Committee Substitute 2 fixes this. It modernizes Kentucky's threshold to 5 miles while preserving the oversight of larger projects. Major transmission projects still have to be reviewed. This reform just simply allows smaller projects, more routine system upgrades to proceed without all the bureaucratic delays that we've seen implemented for purposes not in the best interest of Kentucky. Clarification for Senate for current public service commissioners. Senate Committee Substitute 2 clarifies that existing public service commissioners will not be impacted by this new professional qualification requirements. Current members may continue to serve their existing terms, and the qualifications established in Senate Bill 8 will apply to only future appointments, ensuring continuity, stability during this transition as we expand to a 5-member commission. The standard term, and we'll get into this deeper when we get in the bill, but the standard terms for the auditor's appointment, Senate Committee Substitute 2 also includes a change to Section 16, updating the language to reflect 4-year terms for the auditor appointment rather than the 1- and 2-year terms initially put in the original bill. So these are the changes that are now in Senate Committee Substitute 2, and I think most of the people that had concerns, they were with those issues, and we've addressed those. We feel like there's room to negotiate and work on this bill. It's too important to not make sure we get it right. So let's go back to the bill. This bill strengthens the commission by expanding the Public Service Commission from 3 to 5 members. It protects the service of the existing public service members, and 3 members remain gubernatorial appointees, and 2 will be appointed by the Auditor of Public Accounts. And here's why this is important for us. Some of these cases are so big that the Public Service Commission can get overwhelmed. And we need to have enough employees there to be able to tackle these big projects and have that many eyes on stuff that something doesn't get missed. And so we feel like that's a good number. It gives them the power to be able to put the people on these projects that we need to have so stuff doesn't slip by. Very critical point. It established professional qualifications. It requires a political balance. So no more than 2 members of the commission may have the same occupation or profession, and no more than 3 may be from the same political party. Enhancing the expertise into engineering, finance, law, economics, and utility regulation. We want a diverse board. We want a board that's not dominated by politics, as we've seen some in the past, and we want to make sure that we get the best talent out there and that it's spread out so we have the most thoughtful process to analyze what comes in front of the Public Service Commission. And I feel like everybody would agree to that. Improving the operational independence of the administrative efficiency, administratively attached to the Auditor of Public Accounts solely for limited functions and the purposes expressly requested by the Public Service Commission. So to understand, this is a relationship between them, but it starts with the Public Service Commission requesting, not being told what to do. So I know there were some issues about that. This clears that up. And increase the threshold for a utility transmission line extension project to receive PSC approval from 1 mile to 5, maintaining oversight while also modernizing and allowing upgrades to proceed without red tape, bureaucracy, and outside influence. It strengthens the streamlining accountability to Kentucky consumers. It places primary authority for the intervention in the Office of the Kentucky Attorney General and requires other entities that may intervene to provide credible purposes for their intervention in the case. And what I'm trying to get at here is that when somebody comes to make an issue with a project in Kentucky, we want the transparency of knowing who's funding you to be there. Are you there because you're a citizen group that cares about it? are you a group that's been paid for by an outside country like China or Russia, which we've seen in the past, that's funneled money in these cases to delay projects in the United States? I want to know in Kentucky that if you come before here, that we have transparency to know who's funding you to be there. And I feel like if you're concerned about showing that, then we don't want you in front of our committee, because obviously it's not something that lines up with Kentucky. So we don't want paid groups coming in here to manipulate and delay projects in Kentucky that are not in the best interest of us, but could be funded by a group that is not American or do not have our best interests at heart. So I know it's a little more complicated, but I wanted people to understand what we're trying to get out there. It ensures the Public Service Commission is equipped to manage the 1,100 regulated utilities and infrastructure investments impacting families' energy bills and economic competitiveness. I had mentioned before that we're limited in being able to fix a problem that you've heard how many people are getting these calls for their power bill. This is something that you can do. It is a power that's thoughtful and precise, and it's within our ability to bring some sort of relief. And I wish there was more, but this is the first start for us in the battle to try to get energy rates affordable and abundant and for utilities and power in our state. The case intervention provision, Senate Bill 8 also clarifies who may intervene, which I was speaking to a few minutes ago. Under the bill, the Attorney General remains the statutory advocate for residential consumers. And I will say on this AG has been wonderful to work with on these issues. He's not afraid of making anybody mad, and that's always been the case for people that have an issue, to go there and make your case to make sure you're heard, and that makes sure everybody gets included. Outside entities must demonstrate a direct and unique interest in the specific case to intervene. There's no outright ban on any intervention, and I wanted to clear that up because I know that's something you've probably gotten calls about, and that's not the intent of what we're trying to do here. Why is this reform necessary? For years, the Public Service Commission proceedings have been increasingly delayed by outside groups. This is information you can see for yourself. They're intervening in these cases not to resolve rate disputes, but to delay infrastructure projects or advance national policy agendas. These delays increase regulatory costs, kill projects, prolong infrastructure approval, and ultimately raise all costs for all Kentucky ratepayers. Senate Bill 8 restores focus on the core purpose of what the PSC proceedings are trying to do, and that's protect customers. And so I would be interested for somebody that would have an issue with this, because we're only blocking people that don't want to tell us why they're here and who's funding them. And I think we all should know that. Let's see. The Kentucky AG is a consumer advocate. Kentucky law already assigns the consumer advocacy responsibilities to the Attorney General. The Kentucky Attorney General's Office of Rate Intervention, they have a special office designed to handle just this. This office exists specifically to represent residential ratepayers, to investigate utility rate requests, to participate in Public Service Commission proceedings, and to advocate for lower rates and consumer protection, which covers exactly what we need them to do to make sure that this is fair, and anybody coming to protest has a segue to get heard at a high level. Unlike outside advocacy groups, the Attorney General is elected statewide. It's democratically reflects what the state wants, because we choose him to represent us and give us authority. The accountability is directed to the people and has statutory authority and professional staff dedicated to ratepayer advocacy. Kentuckians elect their Attorney General to look out for their interests. No one elects these outside groups or organizations that want to come in here and speak on our behalf or push their agenda. Over 750,000 Kentuckians voted for Russell Coleman. My question is, who voted for these people in the Sierra Club? That's where you don't have any say. But they can come in from outside with outside funding for the sole purpose of not winning, but just delaying and tying it up. This is what we're fighting against. We have to stop it. People need to be heard, but they don't need to have to wait in line for other people with an agenda. They need to be able to come to it with real issues to help us solve our problem. Why this matters. The legislation is the policy-making branch of government. Senate Bill 8 reflects the clear policy decision. Kentucky consumers should be represented in utility cases by an accountable statewide election officer, not by a national advocacy organization whose priorities do not align with many of what Kentucky's economic interests are. Many of these same groups that object to this provision have advocated policies in the past that have contributed right now to the economic challenges we are dealing with in our state. Senate Bill 8 ensures that the Public Service Commission proceedings remain focused on rates, reliability, and consumer protection rather than getting tied up in these broader issues and campaign policies that are not in Kentucky's interest. Key points for this. Senate Bill 8, and it just wraps us up here, modernizes the Public Service Commission to handle today's very complex energy and infrastructure issues that come before them. Senate Bill Committee Substitute 2 improves the bill by adjusting the transmission review threshold from 1 mile to 5, maintaining oversight, but it allows us to be able to move forward at a little bit faster rate to build out the infrastructure and development that we need to let the world know Kentucky's open for business. The substitute also protects continuity by clarifying that the current public service commissioners may continue to serve. This is not going to affect anybody there. The Kentucky consumers already have a statutory and democratically elected advocate through the Attorney General's office on any rate intervention and any issue you have that you want to take in front of them. So there's no way that somebody can tell you they're being blocked. That door is wide open. It has an office dedicated to it. The bill ensures that the Public Service Commission proceedings stay focused on ratepayer protection and infrastructure reliability, not political advocacy. And as I wrap up, a lot of the members in this room have brought ideas to us, and we've tried to reflect that with the committee substitute too. And Senator Stivers has been fighting this battle for a very, very long time, and has been a key part of crafting a lot of this. And I can't get everybody, but I want to make sure people know that this has been a process that have had a lot of people working on it for a long time. And I'm fortunate that I'm here today to represent it, but credit goes where it's due, and there's a lot of people that had input on this. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I would
thank you very
ask
much.
make a motion for passage on it. But
There's a motion and a second, and we have a question from Senator Wheeler.
oh, very good. I was going to say
Just more of a comment, and I think you addressed the point. I think very, very well, Senator Smith. The Attorney General is our chief public advocate for consumers in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. He is elected and responsible to responsive to the voters of the Commonwealth, who can remove them through an election if they're not doing a very good job. So I think that is a very important part of this bill because sometimes these groups, they intervene. It increases not only the time that it takes to get one of these through, but also the cost, because as you well know, time is often money, especially in business. So I want to thank you for bringing this bill and for the work that you've put into it. I think that this will definitely make the process more consumer friendly in the Commonwealth. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wheeler. And Senator Herron also has a question or a comment.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess I'm just kind of confused about the AG portion. From my understanding, the Attorney General is supposed to first represent the people, as we've heard that those are the people who have elected that Attorney General. But how does that work in the interest, because they also can represent industry or commercial folks as well? So can you just talk about the potential conflict, or if there is an issue, is he representing the people or is he representing the industry? I'm just kind of confused on how that would work.
Well, I appreciate the question, and I'm exactly with you. And so as we went through this, we were very thoughtful in making sure that I was comfortable with the stuff in here. The AG's office does have to represent a wide variety of people that come in there, but because they have an office that's separate, that's totally dedicated to this, that's all they do is with the rate cases stuff there. And I think he's done a good job of keeping that separate. And I think if you look at the record, it's been the most aggressive AG I've seen, especially with what's going on in my district, of getting in there and getting involved at a level I've never seen before. So I think taking that into consideration, same question I asked, they're separate. They've got an entire agency of different personnel and stuff that work on these alone. There's other stuff with other industries that are separate from that. But when you look at the record, this AG has been siding with the ratepayers, which I think is public knowledge and a lot of the news and stuff like that. But I had to get comfortable with it, and I am now. I think that's a good approach to do it. Is it going to be a silver bullet? Will the House change it? I can't say, but you ask a very good question, and it took me a while to understand it as well.
Thank you very much. And Senator Maiden also has a question.
I apologize for having to run out. Of course, Brandon and I have had a few discussions about this since we lived together, but I do appreciate you bringing this. This is what our fifth or sixth bill we've got concerning the energy legislation, and it just, I don't know what it's going to take, but, I want people to know we're trying to do everything we can. I know Senator Wheeler's filed a couple. I've got a resolution coming next week. This is a couple bills for you. House has got a bill. I mean, we're trying to do everything we can, but I want to just ask you a question I know the answer to. And, sometimes I'm not trying to be like Senator Kennedy when he asks those questions. He knows what he's But I had a lot of emails. I know you have. The part about people being able to come before the PSC, you have corrected that.
And we want to make sure that we get influence, but we want to make sure that we're not victim to some of the stuff we've seen in the past.
Sure.
Where outside influences, and that has been Russia and China, have gone through other organizations to fund groups that come and stall projects across the United States that they have no interest in.
Sure.
We just want to know, if you come, who's funding you? And that shouldn't be any problem. I think the only reason you wouldn't want me to know who's paying me to come and argue with you or delay a project would be because you're ashamed of who that person is.
Yeah.
I think that's a question that the people in the Commonwealth should make sure they don't have to worry about that, because we have corrected that.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make that a point, because the emails that we got were all centered around that portion. I think they supported your bill, but they just wanted to also be able to come. So it's a good bill, and I'm glad you corrected that, and I thank you for it.
And I agree, and it's a good comment, because like I said, there are a lot of chefs in the kitchen. When we talked yesterday, I'd made it clear that there was stuff that we would be butting heads over and try to work on through the night, and that's what's happened. This process still goes on. This is not the end of this bill. There's some stuff I think the House is going to recommend. What I heard last night, I like. But realistically, and I've said before, we're so limited of the impact that we can have. And it's frustrating not to be able to go out there as a senator and help just fix this, but we can't. We have other groups that have to do that. But this gives us a chance to have the best team in place with the assets and the resources that they need and the personnel that's diverse to be able to tackle these projects. And that's what we're hoping to achieve today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we do have two individuals that would like to testify. And in the interest of time, and we're sort of people bouncing in and out, we may lose quorum. If Audrey Ernstberger and Tony Curtis would come up together, and we have a limited amount of time here, like perhaps another 5 to 7 minutes for testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, was mentioned that one person should speak for the group. Is that still?
Please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Audrey Ernstberger. I'm an attorney with Kentucky Resources Council, and we represent advocates who represent residential ratepayers in PSC proceedings.
Very good.
I'm Tony Curtis. I'm the executive director of the Metropolitan Housing Coalition and a joint intervener from Louisville, Kentucky.
Thank you very much. And if you all would proceed, we have about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, I'm with the Metropolitan Housing Coalition, a Louisville-based Kentucky coalition of approximately 300 organizations and individuals that engages in research-based advocacy for fair, accessible, and affordable housing, working with the lowest income households across the state. My comments on Senate Bill 8 today concern Section 2 of the bill and the sub, which would silence the voices of residential customer advocates in cases before the PSC. Section 2 creates new hurdles for a party seeking intervention in a PSC case who would have to demonstrate a special and unique interest in the specific rates or services of the utility that are at issue in the case, using clear and convincing evidence and meet a legal standard for so-called associational standing. In cases in which the Attorney General intervenes, which in most cases he shall be the sole advocate for residential consumers. This provision categorically bars intervention by any of the nonprofit organizations who represent residential ratepayers, including affordable housing advocates, community ministries, community action councils, senior advocacy groups, and others. The Attorney General's office, through the Office of Rate Intervention, cannot legally be sole advocate for residential customers Because, as the Attorney General has noted in past cases, his mandate is to represent all customers or consumers and does not allow him to advocate for a subset specifically, whether residential, commercial, or industrial. Because the interests of the different customer classes don't always align, the Attorney General cannot advocate for one class against another. In effect, this new mandate of the Attorney General to be sole advocate for residential customers conflicts with the existing mandate and compromises both. There is not a problem. This is not a problem that needs to be fixed here. The Attorney General is the only party entitled to intervene of right. So the Commission controls who can intervene outside of that and allows intervention only where it believes the party's participation will assist in resolving the issues presented in the case. In recent years, a coalition of public interest organizations represented by KRC have jointly intervened in PSC proceedings in order to be more efficiently advocates for residential ratepayers, particularly customers with low and fixed incomes, as well as small businesses. These joint interveners vary by case, but include the Metropolitan Housing Coalition, focused on the intersection between affordable housing and energy needs, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, providing a community voice for fair energy policies, the Mountain Association, who is tackling the problem of high energy bills in eastern Kentucky, and the Appalachian Citizens Law Center. The Commission has granted intervention because it has frequently recognized these groups' value in presenting issues and developing facts through expert witnesses that will assist the PSC in its mandate of setting rates that are fair, just, and reasonable. Senate Bill 8 selectively and unfairly targets these advocates for exclusion in PSC cases, yet this bill would not prohibit continued intervention in PSC cases by large commercial companies, major cities, organizations representing large industrial customers, trade associations, and industrial concerns, even though in theory the Attorney General is their representative as well. Residential customers who are struggling with rising utility bills and almost continuous rate cases deserve to have a voice in the room and body at the table who are dedicated solely to their concerns and not having to balance multiple conflicting interests. As utility rates continue to rise, Kentucky families need and deserve to have advocates looking out for their concerns and needs. Fair rates start with fair representation. So I urge you to vote on Senate Bill 8 as long as Section 2 remains in this bill. And an addendum here, the affordable utilities equals affordable housing. And for the better part of 2 decades, MHC has been intervening before the Public Service Commission on behalf of low and fixed income households to keep rates affordable, expand energy efficiency, and demand-side management programs, among other issues. Senate Bill 8, Section 2, as written, would end this advocacy. Affordability is a central pillar for the intervention work done by the Metropolitan Housing Coalition and our supporting interveners. Kentucky is currently experiencing an energy affordability crisis where 1 in 3 energy bills will...
Thank you, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak, Mr. Ernstberger, on top of this? You have something else to say? Because we have
Tony-
about 3 more minutes.
Sure. Thank you so much. Tony covered many points, but I would just like to emphasize that the Attorney General, in Section 2 in this bill and the sub, the Attorney General represents all of the interests of the rate classes, industrial, commercial, and residential. And so by saying that the AG will be the sole representative of residential ratepayers in subsection 4 of that section, it allows, for example, the situation where a trade association that represents industrial interest at large could submit for intervention, be approved for intervention, and also reap the benefits of having the AG represent their interests, while ratepayers as a class would be prohibited in the same manner. But if there are any other questions, I can
I believe
take
Senator
those.
West has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you guys clearly disagree with the standard on page 3, section 2, clear and convincing evidence, and that a person has a special and unique interest. That's what you're testifying to.
I'm actually testifying to subsection 4 of that section that says that the Attorney General will be the sole representative of residential ratepayers.
Okay. Well, I'll reserve my question then. So you don't have a problem with item 1?
I think that it is unwise in an administrative case to insert for one party only a standard that would be applied for civil courts as opposed to the administrative level. That is an unfair treatment between the parties, between the plaintiff and respondent and then an intervener. I think that it's an unwise choice, but my main issue and commentary today is on subsection 4.
But in one there, it does allow it still allows intervention.
With special and unique interests.
You have to, by clear and convincing evidence, you have to prove that you have a special and unique interest.
And I think that's a great point.
If you don't agree with that as the standard, then what standard would you propose?
I think that the point that I'm really here to make today is that there are a trade association representing industrial interest at large could intervene and also reap the benefit from representation from the AG as part of the joint interest that the AG must consider. And they can represent broad interests, not just special and unique, whereas residential ratepayers would be eliminated from doing the same. And if the residential ratepayers are paying, they should have a say at the table.
So my question is, if it's not clear and convincing and special unique, what standard do you think's appropriate there?
I would maintain
anybody could intervene at any time.
Administrative standard that we currently have that allows any party that is going to offer something to the process and help the PSC in its mandate to make fair, just, and reasonable rate decisions, for example. The current standard would allow any party that's going to help with that process to intervene, and that is the one that should be the basis.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have regained
Motion.
a member, and we have a motion and a second on Senate Bill 8 as amended by the substitute. The chairman would like to make final comments.
Yeah, I just want to kind of address your concerns. I'm completely in support of the same things you are, and I think we disagree on this because I believe it's in there. And I may have changed the language some, but again, it's a process where a lot of people have input. But our goal is the same. I don't think anybody can say that there's another member that's fought for housing more than I have. And this energy rate stuff, I just attended a funeral of 3 members of our community, and I've never been to a funeral with 3 coffins that burn up in a fire trying to supplement their heating in their house. So we're at a crisis here, and I think you guys agree that giving us a chance to get the best public service commission and best talent and the best efficiency is a good step for us. But I just take issue with the idea that people would be limited when all we're asking, that the litmus test is, transparency. Show us, who's funding you. I think that every member of the Commonwealth deserves that. I cannot see a case, and you all know this, that you all will be blocked from coming. I go to those meetings and protests all the time, so I'd be in the same boat. I'm not going to push a piece of legislation that would limit that. So I do appreciate your input. I think we've got you covered, and apologize for the time frame for us, but we just have to agree to disagree on this one. But keep following the bill. There's a big process to it. There's other members that have expressed stuff to me, and we're very open to working with them because I want the best bill that I can get, period.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will say that KRC is funded by Kentuckians.
We're out of time.
Which is why you won't have a problem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and testifiers. But there is a motion and a second on Senate Bill 8 as amended by the substitute. Please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Carpenter.
I'll explain my vote. Explain my vote.
Please proceed.
We've just had a testimony prior to this bill talking about how we're trying to make sure we're helping our consumers, helping our members of our communities with their electric bill. And then, I don't, for groups to come up and express concerns that we're maybe going to do something to limit that ability, I think that shows that we're definitely not going to do that. We've sit here and we're spending much time. Senator Wheeler had a bill that he's worried about people's electric costs and their input cost, and to think that we would do something on the next bill to limit that ability for our consumers to protest to make sure their utility bills are protected, I think goes against everything that we're trying to do up here. So the process is not working currently, or we wouldn't have people like Senator Herron was talking about that had bills at $600 that were in a few months ago or way less, and not because the weather's got different, it's just because their energy cost is different. So I appreciate the Senator Smith's bill, and I think he's trying to do exactly what we've been trying to do with this committee, is make sure we protect our consumers and get it to where their energy costs are as affordable as possible. So appreciate your testimony.
Senator Elkins. Senator Girdler. Senator Herron.
I'm gonna cast a no vote, but I would like to explain.
Please proceed.
I'm still just a little bit uncomfortable with the AG's position and just trying to get a handle and understand, would the AG be representing the people or would he be representing the industry? And I don't feel like that was clarified for me, and it just still gives me a lot of angst. But am open to change that on the floor if we can clarify what that role would be. Thank you.
Senator Maiden.
Aye.
Senator Mills. Senator Neal. Senator Webb.
Explain my vote.
Please proceed.
I'd like to apologize for being late. The fire alarm kind of messed with my schedule there. But I'm going to vote aye. And, I co-sponsored this bill, and I also have, knowing that this is a work in progress, and it will continue to be. And certainly my area's been hit hard with the electricity bills, and we've got some problems to solve. Not real happy with the way things are right now, and but I think everybody needs to be reminded what the legislature give it. The legislature can take it away, and this is one of those bills that kind of reminds people of that. And I think it's a work in progress, and I do have concerns about the advocacy component as well as public participation as a ratepayer there myself. So I vote aye at this time.
Senator West.
Aye.
Senator Wheeler.
Aye.
Senator Williams.
Aye.
And Chair Smith.
I vote aye.
There you go. Okay. Very good. Senate Bill 8 with committee substitute attached. Thereto passes with the expression the same should pass on the floor. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. I need to record a vote, please. I'd like to record an aye vote on Senate Bill 213.
Very good. Now, I'll go ahead and
Yeah,
just take
turn back.
back over the committee. Because we're in such a rush, I just want to give any member that maybe had wanted to introduce a comment we do at the beginning. You can do it now if you'd like to, if you have guests here. Or I just saw some young people coming in. I wanted to just introduce them. Does anybody have any announcements that you'd like to make?